What does I love you mean? For some, it's a declaration of passion. For others, a quiet assurance. It can be the most comforting words a parent can say to their child, and yet, it can also be the final words uttered on a deathbed. In Violet Evergarden, this very question, what love truly means, is central to the story, and it is explored with remarkable depth. The protagonist, Violet, is consumed by this, not out of romance or curiosity, but out of grief. Raised in war and conditioned for obedience, Violet is introduced as an emotionless soldier, trained to follow orders without hesitation. Her only guiding light is Major Gilbert, the officer who treated her not as a tool but as a person. He taught her to read and write, he gave her a name, and he tried to protect her. However, in the final moments of a mission gone horribly wrong, as he lies wounded, he gives her one last order: to live and to be free. And the words she never expected to hear, I love you. However, before she can understand what he meant, artillery fire cuts the moment short, leaving Violet separated from the Major and the answers she now desperately seeks. As Violet recovers from her injuries and begins life outside the military, she becomes an auto-memory doll, a ghost writer who helps others express their emotions through letters. At first, she approaches the job like a soldier, precise, efficient, and emotionally detached. She struggles with the complexity of human relationships, and often comes across as blunt or insensitive. She even refers to her typewriter as a weapon, treating her new role as just another assignment. But letter by letter, and encounter by encounter, Violet is exposed to the emotions she can't simply transcribe: grief, longing, joy, and regret. Each person she writes for becomes a mirror, reflecting different facets of love. Gradually, Violet grows in empathy towards others and the sorrow for her past. In the process, she becomes more human. Open yourself to both the beauty and the pain of life. The letters she writes are, of course, the main catalyst for this transformation. Through her work as an auto-memory doll, she encounters countless people and enters their lives in a deeply personal way. But while the letters are central to her growth, they aren't the whole story. Because the show takes place in a post-war setting, brokenness, heartbreak, and especially separation are evident everywhere. There is a physical separation, emotional distance, and death, the final separation. Restoration, then, or reunion, is a profound need in the world of Violet Evergarden, and one that is primarily met through objects. Whether it is a letter, a parasol, a typewriter, a handkerchief, or an emerald brooch, various objects in the show serve as a mediator of meaning between the people who cannot be together. Having spent time reflecting on the series, I wish to propose that Violet grows in understanding the meaning of I love you, not by writing letters alone, but through her encounters with these mediated objects. These physical items that carry memory, presence, and meaning far beyond their immediate appearance.
One of the earliest and most symbolic of these objects is the Emerald Brooch, a gift from Major Gilbert. The show opens with Violet stopping at a street vendor, transfixed by the brooch's gleam. The moment is striking. At this point in the story, Violet knows only obedience and survival. Yet, she is drawn, instinctively, to something beautiful. Unlike a gun, grenade, or knife, this object holds no tactical value, and yet she desires it deeply. She treasures it because it reminds her of Gilbert's eyes, which then infuses the brooch with meaning, not because it's useful, but because it is personal. When it goes missing shortly after, Violet panics, not for its cost, but for what it represents. It is the last tangible link to the Major, and, in his absence, the brooch beholds his memory, identity, and love. Such a connection is double-sided, however, for, in holding his memory and love, the brooch also has the capacity to give sorrow and heartache when it is lost. As the series unfolds, the brooch is returned to repeatedly and is focused on visually at key emotional moments, especially when Violet reflects on Gilbert or connects with others in pain. Whether it's Laculia, Iris, the princess, or the playwright, the brooch is often the silent thread that ties her sorrow to theirs. It is not just a keepsake, it is a mediator, First between Violet and the Major, and then between Violet and the world. Through her love and grief, which is held within the brooch, Violet begins to see others, to enter their stories, and to help them say what they could not say alone. The next object I want to highlight is the Parasol. Second only to the Emerald Brooch that connects Violet to the Major, the Parasol is a powerful symbol because it also memorializes the love between two people who have been separated. Unlike the brooch, however, which is primarily romantic, the Parasol holds the love between a father and his daughter. For context, in the 7th episode of the series, Violet is hired to assist Oscar Webster, a famous playwright, in finishing his first children's play. From the outset, it's clear that Oscar is held captive by grief. His lakeside cottage is in disarray, and he drinks at all hours. Seeing this, Violet restores the home, cleaning, organizing, and even hiding his alcohol so he can focus. From there, they begin to make steady progress until, one afternoon during a break, Violet comes across a light blue parasol, decorated with white fringes. Curious, she brings it outside and opens it. Oscar, upon seeing her, is overcome. He lashes out, demanding she leave immediately. But anger is often just guarded sorrow, and at Violet's prompting, he reveals the truth. The parasol had belonged to his late daughter, Olivia, with whom he moved to the countryside after his wife's untimely death. For a time, father and daughter found happiness. Olivia especially loved the parasol. It helped her imagine flying like the water birds of the lake. But that joy was cut short when Olivia grew sick and eventually died, leaving Oscar alone. Like the Emerald Brooch, Olivia's parasol became a double-edged object, infused with both love and grief. And it's through this object that Violet, who has experienced similar loss, is able to empathize. Her tears in this episode are not for herself, but for Oscar, and crucially, this empathy is mediated through the parasol. To hold the cherished object of someone who has passed is not the same as just hearing their story. The parasol makes Olivia's absence real. Fittingly, the next shot after Violet's tears is of the parasol lying in the grass, followed immediately by Violet holding the Emerald Brooch in her hands. Having resolved to finish the play, a story that began as a bedtime tale for Olivia, Oscar and Violet continue working the next day. But there's a narrative problem. The heroine, Olive, needs to return home to her father, but can't go back the way she came. When Violet suggests that Olive could fly if she were a bird, Oscar has the idea. Olive will return with the parasol. He asks Violet to stand by the lake's edge with the parasol to help him visualize. Violet, however, misunderstands and takes his sarcastic comment literally. Declaring that she'll walk on the lake, she leaps on top of the water with the open parasol. And in that moment, through Violet's action and the object she holds, Oscar sees his daughter. Just for a second, Olivia's there again, fulfilling the promise she had once made to him. Such an encounter, when mediated through the parasol, as well as Violet, allows Oscar to have a reunion with the one who death had taken away. Up to this point, the objects we've examined here have been primarily concerned with love, grief, and loss. However, some objects don't carry love, but hate, guilt, and the intense burning for the sins of one's past. The second major object that is introduced in the show is a stuffed animal, a gift from Hodges to Violet on their drive from the hospital to the Evergarden estate. Hodges had originally picked 3 animals since he was unsure of what she would like. Being surprised when she says she has no need for them, he insists that she must choose one, to which Violet picks out the dog. Curious as to her decision, Hodges inquires about her choice, to which she replies that she was once referred to by Gilbert's older brother as Gilbert's dog. This is important because, in having chosen the dog herself, it becomes clear that the dog represents how Violet views herself, a loyal subordinate who will do anything and follow any order. This object is also special because it's the only one in the series that mediates between Violet's past and her growth throughout the show. At first, she's indifferent to the toy, and it passively occupies space in her room, mirroring how Violet is originally indifferent to what she has done to the war and the people she killed. For her, she was simply following orders. However, as Hodges forewarns Violet in the beginning, she is on fire, even if she can't feel it yet, and as she grows in her capacity for love and empathy, she will eventually begin to feel fierce fires of guilt as well. For several episodes, the dog fades into the background, appearing only briefly. Episode 9, however, is where the dog returns, not as an innocent gift, but as a mirror of condemnation. Having been confronted with the death of Major Gilbert, as well as the realization of what she has done in her past, Violet is at her lowest when she isolates herself in her room, unable to eat or work, fully consumed with how she could ever write letters to connect people with the very hands she used to kill and separate people from their loved ones. Upon waking from a nightmare in which the Major condemns her, Violet turns unprompted to the stuffed dog, sitting upon her writing desk. In a fit of contempt and disdain, she grabs the dog as if to throw it, but stops at the last second and falls on her knees, placing the dog before her. The focus of the next shot narrows in on Violet's teary gaze and then the hollow expression of the dog, before Violet attempts to take her life with her own hands, as the dog watches on. Unable to commit, however, Violet begins to weep and asks the Major aloud for an order, begging for some direction in her life. Such direction comes in the form of a letter from Iris and Erica, in which they express their worries for Violet, but also their confidence that she will return to work. The next day, when walking the streets of Leiden, she happens upon a newspaper with the princess she helped on the cover, a poster for the play she helped Oscar write, and finally, a bouquet of violets. As if to mirror the dog, Violet kneels before the violets and, instead of despairing, finds a glimmer of hope in the flowers, her namesake, which then becomes a new object of mediation, not for the sins of her past, but for her growth as an auto-memory stall. She may not be able to erase the sins of her past, but as Hodges tells her, the good she has done won't disappear either.
So what does I love you mean? At the beginning of the show, Violet is introduced to us as a blank slate, completely dressed in white, with no possessions or distinguishing features. Even her metallic arms are wrapped in a bandage, a decision that initially seems odd. However, by the end, Violet not only emotionally carries the stories of those around her, but also physically. From her Auto Memories outfit with its special pin to the Emerald Brooch, from the typewriter to the Parasol, Violet slowly collects objects through her growth that link her to those who she has helped, causing her to literally bear the burdens, sorrows, joys, and fears of others through the objects she now stewards. Each object she encounters deepens her understanding. The Emerald Brooch holds beauty, yes, but also loss. The typewriter gives language to those who are mute with emotion. The Parasol offers a glimpse of reunion that death tried to erase. The stuffed dog reflects the crushing weight of guilt. And the violets, her namesake, blossom in the shadow of all she's endured. These are not just props in a story, they are mediators, sacraments of presence in a world marked by separation. They may not erase suffering, but they do transfix it, and in doing so they make space for a love to remain, even in the absence of the beloved. Of course, this is in part what makes the show so captivating. We love to follow the growth of Violet and to feel as she feels because we too have people we can no longer say I love you to. Whether it's because of distance, discord, or death, we all have people in our hearts that we can no longer reach with words. And so like Violet, we learn to speak through means. We hold on to old letters. We keep photographs tucked away. We revisit the places where memories live. And sometimes we carry a small item, insignificant to others, but special to us. For they offer a glimpse of reunion amidst a present moment of separation. To that end, we are also stewards. We are responsible to remember the love we have both received and given. To do otherwise is to bring about a form of purposeful amnesia, in which we mistakenly declare that it is better to forget and be safe than to remember and be wounded. In truth, though, a love worth having is a love that bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, and endures all things, even when it causes us to ache. Violet found a life worth living when she embraced both the highs and lows of love. We too must be willing to carry the burden of love if we are ever to think ourselves happy.